Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Hello and welcome to the latest look back at Talking Heads. The UK's EU referendum, the state of the island's capital, and a call for the illegal possession of drugs to be decriminalised were amongst the topics discussed this week. Here's Stu Peters with more.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
We're talking about this year's TT. Just finished. Was it a good TT for you? Weather was certainly pretty good. Let's go to the lines and see what Ian made of it. Hello, Ian.
I thought it was a fabulous TT this year. There was excellent racing. Obviously, the weather helped with everybody else.
Yes.
But on the subject of the tragedies that we had, they're mountain to climb, and they want to do it, the riders. They don't want to sit at home playing on their iPads. They want to get out there and have a good ride. If they come back safely, great.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, things do go wrong. I've been involved with marshalling since 1972.
Good man.
And obviously, I've seen a lot of tragedies.
Yeah.
Years ago, when it was the World Championships, riders were more or less forced to come because they were under contract to
do the championship series.
Various companies.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they look for a ride off sponsors.
Yeah.
They go searching for it because they want to do it.
Well, it's the Everest of motorcycle racing, really, isn't it? You know, it's the ultimate to many people doing the TT.
Talking about Everest, this year so far, 7 people have been killed on Everest climbing it.
Yeah.
Last year there were 17. Now, we don't talk about stopping people trying to climb Everest.
Sure.
And we should treat basically the TT the same. It's a challenge, yes, but it's people that want to step up to that challenge that come here.
Yeah.
And I think these people that say, oh, it should be stopped, we shouldn't be doing this, yes, it is tragic that we get deaths, but it should be taken as what they're doing rather than what we are forcing them to do.
Absolutely, yeah, you're right. Nobody's forced to do it, are they?
No.
And they all say that they love it. And I mean, the people who do the TT are a very special breed. I don't really follow road racing, but I have to say I'm full of admiration for the people who do it. Whenever you see the interviews, their eyes light up at the mention of the TT more than any other road race, I think. It's still a blue ribbon event, isn't it?
And when you look at Hutchie and the injury he had on the short circuit, but he was so keen to do the TT again.
To get back,
that he fought and fought till he could do it.
Was it spoilt for you a little bit, Ian, this year because of after the senior, that fallout between Michael Dunlop and Hutchie? It was a bit sort of handbags at dawn, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think this is something that when there's so much at stake and the adrenaline's still flowing, you probably get everybody's hyper. But at the end of the day, we've got to look at what not just the top crews did, but what everybody did, from the last person finishing to the first person over the line. It's everybody. And these handbags that Dunlop started, well, you know,
just high spirits.
It's Michael probably after what happened earlier in the Super Sport and his
payback.
Engine
I sometimes think about, because we only ever talk really about the front runners, don't we, and the people who are involved in tragic accidents. But, I've often thought that the very worst rider in the TT is 10 times the motorcyclist that I'll ever be. And we sometimes forget that. They've got to be pretty good to even enter, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've ridden bikes all my life, and I used to race a Trident years ago.
Yeah.
And, you went out wanting to race. You didn't go out thinking, oh, it's going to kill me, this.
Sure.
I better not do it. Yeah. Because we'd do nothing in life if that's the way we felt.
Well, that was the Dave Jeffries thought on it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, thank you very much for your call, Ian. Thanks for getting in touch today. We've got Val on. Hello, Val.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
The weather certainly helped. There's no doubt about that. It makes everybody in much better humour.
Yeah.
There wasn't the delays and sort of the gap days and things, were not needed. So that bit was fantastic. I was just listening to the previous caller, and I pretty well endorse everything he said, actually.
Yeah.
He's spot on. I'm Marshall as well. And I think I met so many people that first timers again to the island, and they absolutely loved it. I didn't meet one person who did not enjoy it, which I think speaks volumes. Everybody loved it, and loads from Australia, New Zealand, and America. I came across this year, and they all, without any trace of prompting, all said it was awesome. And I think it is.
Yeah,
so
good.
I just want to say that. I know there wasn't the street entertainment in front of Bushy's, etc., but still Bushy's was packed. I was down there several nights, and all the other pubs were too. And that's great. And I think it was spread about the island. And I think the fact that the Maudie Do Day had to get transferred to Peel, that didn't put a damper on it either. Peel was absolutely chocker, as it was that night for the sand racing. The red arrows were on. I think all in all, it was great.
Excellent.
Of course, the downside was the tragedies. There's no doubt about that. It's just horrendous. But they all know that, and every time anybody ever gets interviewed, they're fully aware of that. But again, as the previous caller said, with Everest, somebody posted today on Facebook that since 1922, there's been 300 deaths on Everest. But of course, we don't often hear about those.
Sure.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
So it's they know the risks. But as far as the TT goes, I really do think it's the greatest show on earth.
Brilliant. Excellent. Good call. Thank you very much for getting in touch, Val. Nice to hear from you. I think we've got Chris on. Hello, Chris.
I've had a fantastic TT.
Good.
Although I've been very busy doing other jobs, but, what I did see of it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit disappointed with Mr. Moffat. I'm just curious, does he ever go on holiday in an airliner? Because, unfortunately, when one of them goes down, an awful lot of people go with it.
Yes.
Should we stop going on holiday?
Just on the off chance that something goes wrong. I think that the chances of being killed on an airliner are infinitesimal, though, compared to, the odds of hurting yourself seriously on a motorbike in the TT.
Oh, yeah, I'm quite sure you're right there, Stu. But, there's so many things in this world where, unfortunately, people die.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of microlight flying, and I've lost a few friends. There was one in the sea in Scotland just this week, wasn't there? And another one the week before. If we stop all these things, we're going to do nothing, aren't we?
Yeah.
And it'd be a really sad world. So, for me, the TT's everything, and I really enjoy it.
Brilliant.
And for somebody like Bernard, I think he wants to leave us alone, really, and let... how many people came to the island and enjoyed the TT?
Sure.
Thousands.
Yeah, it seemed nice and busy. I mean, I didn't spend much time out and about, but when I was in Douglas, it did seem particularly busy. But I think that's maybe just the good weather, because, you are aware of people. And I did see, and I don't know if it's because I was using different roads this year, because I moved house a couple of months ago, but I noticed a lot more foreign registered bikes, certainly a lot of German bikes and a few French bikes as well. So I don't know if there's an increase in numbers from the continent or not.
Yeah, maybe there is, because I spotted the same as well. There was an awful lot of white number plates, wasn't there?
Yeah, there were. Yeah.
But
good. Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Chris. Yeah, thanks very much.
You.
Cheers.
Bye.
Also, we've got a thing from the cops, from Inspector Flint at the Isle of Man Police. Let's go back to the lines. We've got Ian on. Hello, Ian.
I listened to the programme. I just thought a nice little thing to say is I was out on sprint day, and after I'd watched the sprint, I went up to the Point of Ayre on a 1930 vintage motorbike.
Lovely.
And had the misfortune to run out of fuel.
Oh.
So I pulled into the side, and within 5 minutes, two French motorbike sidecars came past, stopped, asked me was I okay, and I said no fuel. And they instantly got out a can. I said to them, "It's the first time to the TT?" "Yes." "Good, excellent." They gave me some fuel and just drove off.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's the spirit of TT right there,
so
isn't it?
It is wonderful, really.
Yeah.
And they were thoroughly enjoying themselves.
Yeah, good stuff.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your call. Michael in Onken. Hello, Michael.
It's fine. TT's good.
I thought you might have entered the TT0 race on that scooter thing you've got.
I'd be more reliable than most of them.
You'd be faster as well. I've seen you going down Athol Street on the pavement. Yeah.
Next year, it'll do 30 miles. What I was going to say, Stu, is nobody seems to pick up on the fact that surely this the TT has to have insurers.
Yeah.
There's got to be regulations. And when is somebody from Europe or wherever going to throw the curveball in and say that it's too dangerous?
I don't know that they can.
How much are we masters of our own destiny in this?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thought. I don't know that they can ban it, but, I don't want to put it up as a challenge.
Put so many restrictions and problems in the way,
Yeah. Well, it's sort of got through an awful lot of things. I mean, if you think about health and safety legislation now, and people are constantly phoning the programme complaining about, when I was a boy, I used to be able to sit with my legs over the fence at so-and-so, and you can't get there. Now it's a restricted area. I mean, that's health and safety stuff, isn't it?
But I tell you what, I was looking at some of the footage of the film, which was excellent, on ITV4, and there's some dangerous-looking sights.
Yeah, well, and some dangerous spectators as well.
That's right, yeah, it frightens you to death.
It does, yeah.
But that's my only thought, is when, how long is it going to last as far as the powers that be?
Well, maybe the Isle of Man government can take a similar position to the French government on most things, which is that if we don't agree with it, we just say no.
Yeah, but as we all know, we do as we're told, don't we?
We tend to.
If the tail is wagged, we smile.
Yeah, we tend to. All right, Michael, thank you very much for your call.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
We're talking about farming and whether or not Britain leaving the European Union would affect Manx farmers. Apparently there are calls that it would, which surprises me a little bit. I didn't think that we were tied in at all with Europe. But, listening to what was said earlier on, there are all sorts of things. Shortfall of what, says somebody else, who clearly thinks the way that I do. As far as I'm aware, Manx farmers receive no EU money, but do receive over £8 million from the Manx government. Piece from MNFU didn't actually say. Very fudged interview. What he was really saying, may not have opportunity to trade freely in Europe. Not sure, apart from cheese and some Manx lamb, what Manx farmers do trade into the EU. A lot should have been done before now. Okay, I know very little about farming, very little, except that, the countryside smells fairly disagreeably. But apart from that, not really helpful. So if you do know a bit more about farming, then this is a great opportunity to get in touch today. The farming industry must be the most subsidised business in Europe and the island already. How could they lose out? Virtually every other business gets by or goes bust on their own without subsidies. What makes them such a special case? We buy in most of our food anyway, says Josh. OK, and I think we've got Fenella online to talk about this. Hello, Fenella.
I would vote, actually, if I had a vote, but I don't. I still have to do as what I'm told by the European Union. I think everybody does except for France and Germany, and they do as they like.
Well, certainly France does. If they don't like any of the legislation, they just say no, and that's the end of it, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah, just like, and the thing is, as the Isle of Man, farming is disappearing.
In the Isle of Man, is it?
Not the Isle of Man, but farming in the Isle of Man, because there's so many people come over here, and they've got it all in grass. They have horses on it, and the number of farms has reduced over the past 30 years or so.
Oh right, I didn't know that. Okay.
According to my husband, he says there was about 30 or 40 farms in Santon, and now there's hardly any.
And do you think that that's because of the subsidy system that we've got, where people are encouraged to maybe not?
I don't know really. I think we should. I think we should have subsidies for farmers, because it's better for you to eat the food that's grown nearest to you.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I mean, I'd hate to think that we were in the position where we had to have all our meat sent from somewhere in the EU.
Yes.
Because we've always had very good meat in the Isle of Man, haven't we?
If I want to have lamb chops,
I extremely lucky in the farmers that we've got.
Yeah, I have to go to the butchers or I have to go to ShopRite, because they sell those New Zealand ones at Tesco, which is a place that I pass on my way home usually and call in for bits, and it's not nice, I don't think, that New Zealand lamb.
Well, I suppose it's travelled a long way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, how can they possibly charge cheaper after all that transport it's had?
Yeah.
just think it's mad.
Well, in New Zealand, apparently, people tell me, doesn't have farming subsidies as such. So, how we can get... But you're not really comparing light with light. I mean, Manx lamb chops are wonderful, juicy, big, sort of chunky things.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas these New Zealand things that I bought a while ago by mistake, they're barely toothpicks.
Yes. Anyway, I just, if I had a vote, I'd say no. Let's stay out.
Yes. Good thought. All right, thank you very much for your call, Fenella. Always call us again. It's always nice to hear different voices on the programme. Let's have a look at some more texts. After an outvote, nothing changes for 2 years. This is to sort new agreements. The world won't end next week, says Tom. No, I'm sure it won't. What's the point in even talking about it? We don't have a vote, so you just have to sort after the EU vote was taking place. Even if the public in the UK vote to come out, it's still got to be ratified by the UK Parliament. Again, we have no say in it. Well... because we've got no say in whether or not Britain leaves the European Union, it doesn't mean to say that it's not something that could affect us, and that's kind of what we're talking about, rather than whether or not Britain should stay in. The news bulletin seems confused, says John. As far as I know, Manx farmers get no subsidy from the EU. Well, that was kind of what I always thought, but Manx Radio News suggests that they'll lose subsidy and want government to replace it. The Manx NFU man said only they would suffer from not having access to the EU market. Two different things. Needs clarifying, says John. Ben's producing again today, and I'm indebted to him for digging out a piece of paper from the government website, which goes through the Isle of Man relationship with the European Union. And it says, under Protocol 3, the Isle of Man is part of the customs territory of the Union. There's free movement of industrial and agricultural goods in trade between the island and the Union. EU customs legislation, certain legislation relating to the trade in agricultural goods, applies directly to the island by virtue of Protocol 3. And this is the important bit. The Isle of Man neither contributes to nor receives anything from the funds of the European Union. So that hopefully clarifies that. And to clarify even more, we're joined on the line now by Belinda Leach, who's the General Secretary of the Manx National Farmers Union. Belinda, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. So the real worry then, so it's not that Manx farmers get subsidies from the EU. What is the real worry? That it's going to limit our ability to trade within Europe?
Partly that, but to be absolutely clear, the support, agricultural support that farm businesses on the Isle of Man receive is, by agreement in Tynwald, roughly comparable to what our EU neighbours and competitors receive.
I see. So it's linked.
So it's funded from our own Isle of Man government funds. I mean, I need to be clear. I think if any farm business could work without agricultural support, they would like to. But these were introduced all those years ago, immediately post-Second World War, to encourage much greater production of food to feed the nation.
Yeah.
They are being phased out. That is where the end goal is, to end up with no subsidy of any sort. It is not specifically there to fund food production anymore. It is moving from that in order to avoid wine lakes, butter mountains, all the things that they undoubtedly farm subsidies caused.
Well, that's another of those things that Europe was guilty of, wasn't it? Butter
yes,
mountains and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to be clear, I think there is some confusion that people think, but, what's happening in France, Spain, Italy doesn't affect us. But actually, the EU is also Northern Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, who we are definitely and undoubtedly doing a lot of trade with, be it exporting crops, be it exporting breeding cattle or whatever.
But that would continue even if Britain left Europe, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily. It apparently has to be negotiated.
Okay.
Because the Protocol 3 agreement would then cease if we came out, and it would necessitate renegotiation. And this is part of the problem. I think you have, through your listeners and yourselves, made it clear. Very sketchy information, very poorly presented to everybody to see what exactly would be the impact. But, I mean, yes, I think an earlier contributor was quite right to say nothing would happen overnight. Yeah. It's several years of renegotiating. But we would not necessarily be able to automatically start trading with Wales,
No, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that if Manx farmers have got some sort of a trade agreement, some sort of a contract with people in Wales, a supermarket chain in Wales, for example, for Manx meat, then, that would probably stay in place. And it's just a trade agreement. You don't need governments to be in agreement about things. There doesn't need to be a union for that to take place. It's a deal between two different businesses. And surely that sort of thing would continue as long as it worked for the two businesses. And no amount of European Union, in or out, will make much difference to that, will it?
Yes, it would. We don't automatically open trade with any country. There are agreements in place, and it is our Protocol 3 agreement that does enable us to trade into the EU. Yeah. By the EU, we do mean those neighbouring British countries.
But the legislation enables us to do it. It doesn't mandate that Welsh supermarket chains have got to buy Manx meat, for example.
No, it doesn't. Of course, it doesn't.
So,
it doesn't mean they have to.
That's a commercial deal.
But it does enable us to export off island.
Yeah.
And if we are...
Let me just turn it around, and I appreciate you phoning about this because it's helping clarify things for me. Let's just turn it around. Is there, or would there be anything that would stop Manx farmers exporting to Wales or to Scotland or to England?
Their country could, in the way that we could say, right, we no longer have an agreed trading position through a Protocol 3, therefore we'll have no food imports.
Okay. All right.
Therefore we could not expect food or other, in fact, not just agriculture, other exports. Don't forget, an awful lot of the finance business is conducted through the City of London.
Sure, yeah.
So this isn't just about farming at all.
No.
And I think we did want to make clear, we do have a very big range of views, that some of the negatives associated with Europe have to be bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And again, that's a cost, isn't it, on any business? So you think, that would be great to be free of that.
Yes. Yeah. That's certainly the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
Like I say, I've got no vote in this and no say in it really, but if
and
I
none
did,
of us have,
I think I'd probably look to leave, because all that it seems is that, the bureaucratic machine is growing at an exponential rate, and, everybody's paying more taxes these days and getting less back. But, bureaucracy is just blossoming. So if this is only a way of stopping that or slowing it down, it'd be a good thing.
And I think all and every one of us would think, well, do there need to be so many bureaucrats looking after the EU machine and coming up with amazing legislation and very obscure rulings? Yeah,
I think we'd all suggest probably not, wouldn't we?
Exactly.
All right. Belinda, it's been great talking to you. Thanks very much for calling today.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
You're listening to the latest Talking Heads podcast, featuring highlights from the programme over the past week.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
We're talking about Douglas. Let's go to the lines. I think, is it Fred that we've got? Hello, Fred.
Oh, hello, Stu. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. You're calling from off island, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, no, East Anglia, Lowestoft and Suffolk.
Yeah, well, that's fairly off island from here.
Not far away. Look, just got back from the TT. Thoroughly enjoyed it. First time I've ever been. Wanted to go since I was about 18.
Oh, brilliant.
Regarding the roads, yes, they are pretty bad. But there's two trains of thought. I mean, the road along the front, you can't do much more than about 20, 25 miles on a bike, but it keeps the speeds down.
Yeah, it does. That's true.
And I think that's... I'm an insurance engineer, is my job, and I look at many damaged bikes and cars, and it's often speed, and people thinking they're better than what they really are. So, yes, it was uncomfortable. Perhaps shouldn't say this, but if you get between the tram lines and go on that sort of tarmac, apart from the what the horse drops, that was quite a lot smoother.
Yeah.
But thoroughly enjoyed it. The Barbary Coast, lovely restaurant, spent quite a few evenings in there. Can't really fault it. The only thing, slight criticism if you wish, the Isle of Man, the most comprehensive guidebook, does tend to put all the most expensive restaurants in there.
Right, yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Had a fantastic time. Just I'd like to thank Ian and Gladys, who put us up on the homestay. Excellent. Loved it.
So it was your first TT then, Fred? Have you been to the island before that?
No.
So your first visit completely? Right.
Yeah.
And will you come back? Do you think
we're not doing the TT next year, but we want to come back the following year for the Manx.
Yes.
I'm listening to you now on my computer. I'm sitting at home doing some work, and a little bit concerned about this company going to take it over next year. And they want to pump a lot more people onto the island. Beds, hotels. What's going to happen there? That's a concern, obviously, for everybody.
Yeah.
And will it lose its kind of, forgive the word, quaintness? That's not perhaps the quite word. It's very, very professional, but there's some lovely sort of quaint sort of ways about it.
If it wasn't for the bikes, Fred, would you still come over, or are you a keen motorbike fan?
Yeah, I'm a keen motorbike fan. I've got an FJR 1300 and a Sports X up 1000.
Yeah.
Always wanted to come since about 18 and 19. Marriage, mortgages, children.
No, the only reason that I ask is that if you want to see the Isle of Man at its best, I suggest that you come out of TT and Manx Grand Prix periods, to be honest. If you like quaint and if you like history and culture and all the rest of it, come outside of the race periods.
Yeah, it reminds us, we've got friends in Whitby and across the Yorkshire Moors there, lots of places on the island. We did, we're getting back and forwards from Lowestoft. We've just done 860 miles, so we did quite a lot of travelling around the island.
Yeah.
And thoroughly enjoyed it. Castletown's a lovely little place, the Laxey Wheel. And I must say that the people on the island are very, very friendly and always pleased to see you and ask you to come back. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Oh, well, it's good to hear from you, and I hope you do come back soon. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Stu.
Thank you, Fred. There you go.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
We're talking about whether or not Britain would be better off leaving the European Union or not, whether or not you've got a point of view on that. And a few people have, thankfully. Let's go to the lines. We've got Ken in Peel on line 1. Hello, Ken.
Fact, I know already that my 4 English relatives, being Scottish, my 4 English relatives are already voted out because they got postal votes because they're away. But
okay.
Fact, I'm just amazed now when they talk about trade that nobody's mentioned world trade. Even over 50% of the items that are imported are free anyway. There's no trade barrier in duty. There's that dreaded VAT, of course, which if they left, they could actually negotiate to get rid of and replace it by that good old-fashioned tax, purchase tax.
Purchase tax, yeah.
I'm an outer, by the way, because I voted to get out in 75 or whenever it was.
Right.
But when they talk about the aircraft parts, most aircraft parts that come in from outside the EU are free anyway. Yeah. As long as they go on an aircraft, there's a relief.
Well, my view on that is that, people who say, oh no, we've got to stay in because it's important to our industry.
Aircraft parts, such a niche industry and very expensive industry. Yeah. There's tax relief, all right, there's VAT, but the 2 examples they mention is sugar. If you want an outer, sugar gets taxed because they try and protect the cane industry in Greece and Turkey.
All right.
But the other thing is cars, yes. The 2 biggest worries is if the Isle of Man, if we do stay in, they could try and negotiate that Manx people can work in the EU without having a visa.
Yes.
At the moment, the wife can't, but maybe the Isle of Man could negotiate. Whether that's because of the work permit system they operate here.
Right, yeah.
And the other big thing is if we do leave, is the French will be dishing out boat tickets. There's a boat ticket to England on your way. I am a bit fearful what's going to happen there because they'll just let everybody go, I think.
This is the migrant situation.
Yeah. That's a big worry for anybody that's living in England, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, well,
we would again get a spill over here, I suppose.
Bring the troops back then and, line the south coast, maybe, is the answer to that.
Could employ more customs officers again and immigration people and do the job right.
There you go. There's jobs created already. All right, Ken, thank you very much for your call. Comment, Stu, it seems to me that bankers and traders want to stay in the EU, whereas manufacturers, most of them, want out. If I had a vote, there's no way I'd go along with the bankers or the traders. After all, they put us in the mess that we've been in the last 10 years. So what do they know, says Sarah. Stu, if the UK left and saved the billions they pay to the EU, do we in the Isle of Man get some of that saving, says Rob. Greetings, Stu. I'm growing increasingly nervous about the outcome of the EU referendum. My view is that in order to vote for Brexit, you have to be absolutely convinced that the status quo is unsustainable going forward, be absolutely clear in your mind what the alternative is and that it would be better. Pro-Brexit campaigners have today not outlined how we would be better if we left Europe, but simply how we could be better. As David Cameron said, it's a leap in the dark. There's absolutely no guarantee that we'll re-establish any trade links with other EU countries. It's almost a sense of self-entitlement that the rest of Europe would be falling over themselves to keep ties with the UK. Interesting how the Brexit campaigners have shifted the debate from the economy, which they can't win as Brexit would be a complete unknown financially, but has now moved to the hot topic of immigration as a form of scaremongering the undecided voters. Ridiculous and frightening. And that from our new friend Helmet, who's become a regular contributor and a very welcome one as well. Thank you, Helmet. My thoughts, Stu, what a stupid, idiotic, childish Remain campaign Cameron has run by using scare tactics and terrifying people to vote Remain. That from David. Neither side truly knows what might happen if they leave. They're just scaremongering. The only definite fact is independence. Everybody on radio or TV saying that it should stay. A wealthy businessman. Time for the working people to stand up, says Gary. Stu, I read that over 65s were most likely to vote to leave. Could it be that we're the only ones who remember life before the EU, asks Brian G. Could be, yeah, who knows. Britain would do OK outside the EU as they need the UK more than the UK needs them. Biggest hidden worry is if UK Brexits, the whole of the EU will unravel, as the hard-working Germans will soon tire of propping up some member states. Also, the far right is gaining ground in France, Austria, Italy and Germany. Ooh, Cameron's fault, whose poor negotiation skills have made it a vote too close to call. That's from Skell in Port St Mary. If we leave the EU, we would have a better economy as foreign workers send all the spare money back to their home country, and that's lost from our economy forever, says Jan. Why would that make it a better economy, though? Because those people would still be here, still doing that. So I don't know that that's going to really improve things. But Stu, Nostradamus predicted that a union of Europe would collapse and cause great problems. Perhaps we'd better get out now. That from Ruth. Oh, well, as soon as we get to Nostradamus, I know it's all over. Forget it, we're all doomed.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Should the laws on drug use be relaxed? Two leading welfare organisations want drug use decriminalised, arguing that the war against narcotics has failed. The Royal Society for Public Health and the Faculty of Public Health say personal possession should no longer be considered an offence. They believe users should be referred for treatment and help, but still want dealers punished. Is the decriminalisation of certain drugs a good idea, or could it do more harm than good? Should the NHS pick up the tab for treating addicts, or is the health service already under too much strain? Your comments, Dave says, oh great, the whole place full of potheads, dopeheads and crackheads. One strike and you're out. And this comment, hi Stu, I'm missing something here. Drugs for self okay. If being a drug dealer, it's a crime. Who do you get the drugs from? We've got Dave on from Ballasalla to talk about this. Hello, Dave.
Well, Stuart, if I'm being honest with you, and you know I'm always honest, I speak my mind, I don't think anybody knows the answer.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's anybody can give you a definitive answer.
You're possibly right on that, yeah.
But my concern would be, and I'm sure you're going to say the same thing, it's not the adults, it's children.
Yes.
You do not want children going to school in the morning out the top of the head with drugs. Now, you've reported this on your own station from time to time.
Sure.
Where children have been caught across going to school with drugs as young as 5 years of age.
Oh, it's frightening. Yeah, completely frightening. The thought I've got about this, Dave, I don't know if you agree or not, is that you're quite right that nobody's got a crystal ball. Nobody knows what's the best approach to this. But on the basis that the approach that we've got at the moment hasn't worked ever, might it just be worth trying a different model, even if only, for a couple of years, to try it and then monitor the results and see whether or not it's doing any better than the old way of doing things?
I think the problem that you've got is once you try something, it's very, very hard
to go back
to stop it.
Yes.
I'm. Let me put it to you like this, and I don't say this gladly. I'm on a lot of drugs due to the fact that I'm diabetic.
Sure.
Right? And I'll tell you what, Stuart, being honest, I hate every minute of it.
Oh,
I
sure.
really do.
Yeah.
Purely and simply because a lot of these prescribed drugs, you really don't know what the hell you're taking. Okay, they may be doing your back good, they may be doing your front good, but deep down, what are they actually doing?
Sure, yeah.
And that concerns me greatly. Now,
And that's legal drugs that are prescribed by a specialist, yeah.
Now, if you look at something that is not prescribed, if you looked at something that hasn't gone through official channels to actually identify what's in there, how the hell do you know what's in there?
Yes.
You've already got reports coming up on your own station. Somebody in the UK took this and it was a legal drug, but it's recommended you don't because, well, I mean, what do you do? And I just feel, if I'm being honest, I feel sorry for youngsters of today.
Yeah, sure.
Because they're very much betwixt and between. And clearly, you don't really want to add problems already to problems.
I'm pretty much on the fence as far as this is concerned, but one of my favourite comedians in the universe, he's dead now, but was Bill Hicks. I think he died in 1994. And he did part of his stand-up routine, and he said, the war on drugs is lost, and let's face it, it was always going to lose. And people say drugs are bad. I've had some great times on drugs. I mean, I'm not condoning this or passing comment on it, but he said, I've had some great times on drugs. And if you look at it, what's legal? Cigarettes are legal, kill millions of people every year. Booze is legal, kills millions of people every year. The difference is that they're both taxed and allowed, whereas things like marijuana, which people talk about, there are all sorts of potential benefits from marijuana, has never done anybody any harm, ever. And, I mean, I had a friend, I saw him a few years ago, he'd lost a whole load of weight, and I said, are you ill? No, he said, I've been getting into the nightclub, the rave scene. He said, we go down, we just drink soft drinks, he said, so there are no drunks falling about and being disagreeable, and we have a couple of these little ecstasy pills, and we can dance all night, and it's great. He said, I've never felt better. So, again, I'm not condoning that, but, there is a different point of view, isn't there?
Well, this is why I say you've got to look at that side of it.
Yeah.
And you've got to look at it with eyes wide open.
Yes.
You can't look at it blinkered. No more than you can look at Stuart Peters going down to the doctor and saying to the doctor, I could do with something for my leg. I can hardly walk today.
Yeah.
The doctor's got to look and say, well, hang on, why are you having problems with your leg? There's something somewhere that I feel not right. And my main concern is, would it affect children?
Yes.
It would. Would it get into children? We don't know.
Would more children end up taking drugs? Or is part of the thrill of illegal drugs the fact that they're illegal? And that, when you're a child, you quite like the idea of doing something that's a bit risky. If it was legal to have the stuff, maybe fewer would be tempted to do it.
Stuart, I've got a situation up here where they put up Harris fencing because they're pulling houses down. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, well, why are you doing that? Oh, well, we've got to stop the vandalism. I said, you've got the school holidays coming up. I said, and what's that Harris fencing going to do? It's going to be a magnet to kids. Sure. Oh, we'll climb over there. And, they shouldn't be there. I said, you know that? I know that. Yes. But it's natural.
It's an open invitation, yeah. All right, Dave, nice to talk to you again. Thank you very much for calling. You raised some interesting points there. This from our new friend Helmut. Greetings, Stu. I always get a bit twitchy when there's talk about the legalisation of drugs. I know it's a very emotive issue, especially with some people in the Isle of Man. However, I think that this had set a dangerous precedent going forward. Once you start to decriminalise lower-class drugs, such as cannabis, where do you stop? Crazy as it sounds, would it eventually lead to the legalisation of heroin? Also, I personally don't think that partial legislation would address the thrill that people have trying to acquire drugs because they're illegal. Without coming across all Daily Mail, I think we should be careful about this. Thanks and a happy weekend from Helmut. Stu, I've long thought that currently illegal drugs should be legalised. One, it brings control back on the quality of such things, protecting people from unscrupulous dealers. Two, they could be taxed along with everything else, increasing revenue. And three, the cost to society by legal drugs, i.e. alcohol, far outweighs any damage caused by a small minority of people who are addicted to cannabis, for example. That from Jan. Stu, I used to have a friend across who used to smoke a little dope. Never did him any harm. In fact, he played rugby and ran a small business. One day, his dealer persuaded him to try something different, which turned out to be cocaine. Within 6 months, he'd lost his wife and kids, lost his home and his business, and all because he went up a level. That was in the 80s, and he's now dead. The point is that not necessarily the drug which is the problem, but the people it puts you in touch with. That's an interesting thought, and I don't suppose that would change either. Thanks for getting in touch on that, Richie. And another Rich says, with over 20 years involved in the late-night entertainment industry, I've witnessed time and time again how much a problem alcohol is and drugs are not. Most security incidents are drink-fueled, and the few drug-related incidents are because of possession and not violence. It's beyond me why alcohol is legal and the lower classes of drugs are not. The tax reason is blindingly obvious, says Rich. Okay. Mike says, I know my mum and dad love me, but they didn't spend a lot of time with me, so I think it's just by luck that I didn't go into drugs. Listening to the debate, I have 3 daughters of my own, and as far as I know, they don't take drugs. So I think families which spend more time together, go places together, and do things as a family are possibly less likely to end up going to drugs later. By showing kids attention, there may be less chance that they'll end up turning to other forms of entertainment. Of course, there are times when parents just don't have the time to spend with their children due to work. But yeah, I think some interesting points there, Mike. Yeah, and I don't disagree with what you're saying there. Blair says, just a quick thought. Interesting that legal highs, which were freely bought up until May this year, have now been banned across the UK and are illegal. I recall a significant number of young people being admitted to hospital as a result of taking legal highs, and a few unfortunately passed away. If we legalise or partially legalise drugs, would this result in a similar number of casualties as there were pre-banning of legal highs? I don't know, but yeah. It is a very emotive subject, but prohibition didn't work in the 30s and just led to a rise of gangsters, says Jan.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
That's it for the latest look back at Talking Heads. Our thanks as ever to everyone who took part in the programme. If you'd like to get involved in the discussion, you can call, text or email between midday and 2 p.m. on weekdays, or you can share your thoughts at any time on the Facebook page. That's Talking Heads with Stu Peters. You can listen back to each day's programme in full using the on-demand section of manxradio.com, and the website's also where you'll get an update of what's being discussed on the programme each day. You can also keep up to date with that information by liking the Facebook page or following Stu Manx on Twitter. And if there's anything you think we should be discussing on the programme, let us know by emailing talk@manxradio.com. But that's it for now, so until next time, goodbye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com.
Love being Shaw.
Terms and conditions apply.